Gonna get started. Good evening, everyone. We call the Palm Springs regular city council meeting of November 9th, 2023 to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember DeHart.
Here.
Councilmember Hostage.
Here.
Councilmember Middleton.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein. Mayor Gardner.
Here.
5 members present.
Thank you. Before we get started, we have an announcement from our city attorney.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, members of the public at home. Tonight we're going to be talking about a matter involving the Marilyn Monroe statue litigation. Two of our council members in the last 12 months have received campaign contributions from one of the proponents of the ballot measure that relates to that litigation. And so under a new law, SB 1439, those two council members, Holstage and Middleton, will be recusing themselves from the discussions in closed session.
Thank you very much. At this time, we do have a number of public comments. City Attorney, are the council members leaving the room before public comment?
That'd be safer, yes.
Okay. All right, so we will begin with Janice Lyle, followed by Kurt Sear. And you have 2 minutes for your public comment.
Hi, I'm Janice Lyle. I'm a full-time resident of Palm Springs, and I was the executive director of the Palm Springs Art Museum from 1994 to 2007. And during that time, the Desert Fashion Plaza completely blocked the view of the museum from Palm Canyon. So for 13 years, I was in discussions with City Council, staff, with the owners, DeBartolo and then John Westman, to address the problem created by the massive, and by the early 2000s, essentially dead mall. In countless community meetings, citizens proposed changes to address the mistake made in the 1980s when the Fashion Plaza was expanded. We advocated for a street connecting Palm Canyon and Museum Drive. Such a street would open up direct views of the architecturally significant museum building, highlight culture in downtown Palm Springs, and allow physical access by foot and by car. Getting the street located in the perfect corridor was a major accomplishment in the downtown plan. The street was built, the museum was integrated in downtown, and then along came Marilyn, effectively blocking that view to the museum again. My issue is not about Marilyn, but very specifically about the placement in the street in front of the museum. There's a solution to the problem that both acknowledges the value of the museum and the tourist appeal of Marilyn. Keep Marilyn, but put her in a different location. Thank you.
Thank you. Kurt Sear, followed by Deborah Hovel.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kurt. I'm a resident of Palm Springs. I own Palm Springs Mod Squad, which is an architectural tour and design company. And I drive by daily on my tours with my modernistas along that corridor, showing not only architecture, but also Marilyn. One of my concerns is by having her in the middle of the street, that is a bit of a traffic issue and a safety issue. The tourists are there photographing in front of Marilyn and not really paying attention to the fact that that's an active street. I think Marilyn can be moved somewhere else, not on the active street, and I think it's a safer location. It also frees open the vistas and the view for the art museum, which is a very important bit of architecture here by E. Stewart Williams. So I would urge you to reconsider the placement of Marilyn. I think she's a great asset to the city, but I don't believe that she belongs there in the middle of the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Havel, followed by Richard Havel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deborah Havel, and I am a full-time resident here in Palm Springs and actively involved in a lot of things. But I want to tell you about a little interaction I had with a petitioner outside of Walgreens a month or so ago. This man reached out to me and said, "Help us protect our Marilyn, won't you?" And I said, "From what?" And he said, "Well, they're going to destroy her or remove her." And I said, "Well, moving her doesn't really destroy her. My issue is the placement as well of this giant thing in the middle of a new city street that was specifically intended to allow views of the museum to Palm Canyon." The man made me chuckle a little bit because I love a crazy tourist photo op as much as anybody else. I've posed in front of big bulls, steers, giant balls of string, you name it, I've posed in front of it. It's fun. Maryland is a fun thing to have in Palm Springs. Just witness the tourists that line up to get an up-the-skirt shot for a memory of their vacation here. Move her and maybe even add some other crazy things to make it more of a fun thing for tourists taking photographs here. But to put her in front of the museum and imply that that's a good placement that was a temporary placement at best seems unfair and unwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Havel, followed by Mark Davis.
Hi, I'm Richard Hovel, and I'm a resident of Palm Springs. My only issue is the street is called Museum Way, not Maryland Way. I think Maryland could go lots of different places and not take up that vista from Palm Canyon to the museum, which is a very important piece of architecture here. So as my wife said, I'm not interested in destroying Maryland. I would just like to see her placed someplace else, out of the middle of the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Davis, followed by David Zippel.
Good evening. Mark Davis. I'm a full-time resident of Palm Springs. And I just have to harken back to the day that the city council, they didn't even vote. They just said, okay, it can go in the middle of the street, which was a big surprise to everybody because for 5 years, that statue had been placed in the park at Maryland Plaza. And for 5 years, you didn't hear a single peep out of anyone for or against. Everyone was happy with that scenario. Then this lack of judgment on a decision made by that council, who subsequently kept saying, well, we didn't know there was any opposition to it, whereas there was major opposition to putting it in the middle of the street. It just was not publicized and given to the public that that was what happened with Council Mel that came in for that meeting. But nonetheless, for 5 years, it's been in the plan. Everyone was pleased with it. The moment it suddenly changed within a matter of weeks, everyone was upset. There were articles from around the world talking about it. It put Palm Springs in a very poor light. And look at the money the city is spending for this now. Not only was it city money just out of another pot that bought the statue, if it's PS Resorts, because that's where they get their funding, from city taxes. But it's costing so much in legal fees. And then the citizens who are paying these taxes were also paying to fight having it in the middle of the street. And on the website, it said the choice was Maryland stays where it's at or it goes into a warehouse. And this type of gaslighting is just not something the city should be proud of doing. End of story. Be transparent, listen to the citizens, look at 5 years, look at 10 years of history.
Thank you. David Zippel, followed by Trina Turk.
Hi, I'm David Zippel. I'm a citizen of Palm Springs. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Anyone who has followed the glacially slow rebirth of downtown Palm Springs knows that the downtown plan is radically different from the community consensus that resulted from the visioning sessions that the city sponsored in 2011. Dreams of a town square open from Palm Canyon to the Palm Springs Museum were dashed years ago, but one of the few things on the community wish list that remains on the downtown plan is a new through street between Palm Canyon to the Palm Springs Art Museum. Museum Way, as it was finally named, is more of an alley than the broad boulevard that was promised, but it did provide the view corridor to our culturally and architecturally significant museum. Then the city illegally closed the street and placed Forever Maryland blocking the museum. Now the city proposes to amend the plan to permanently close Museum Way from Bellardo to Museum Drive for the purpose of permanently hosting the Forever Maryland statue. This is bad planning, bad faith, illegal, and a betrayal of the community input the Palm Springs City Council solicited. As you will recall, we citizens of Palm Springs voted ourselves a 1% tax increase to pay for this redevelopment. Please find a new forever home for Maryland and reopen the street we were promised. Thanks.
Thank you. Trina Turk, and then we will move to online comments.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I've owned a home in Palm Springs for 25 years and a business here for 21 years. I represent Committee to Relocate Maryland, a group of 500-plus concerned citizens who are advocating for a relocation of the Maryland statue. The city would not be involved in a lawsuit over illegal street closure had it listened to constituents who value our historic architecture back in 2020. Through this entire saga, the city has hidden behind PS Resorts and made disingenuous statements. For example, an excuse used in 2020 was that the placement would be temporary. What happened to temporary? PS Resorts and the city are now wasting tax revenue on paid signature gatherers spreading misinformation and on an election to change rules that don't suit their agenda. The Elections Code allows a city council to refer an initiative to city departments for reports such as the fiscal impact of the initiative, consistency with the general plan, its effect on land use and housing, and impacts on traffic congestion. Are these studies being done? The initiative's summary discusses the positive financial impact of illegally closing Museum Way, but where's the data to back this up? The statue is a tourist attraction which people would visit regardless of its location. We have yet to see the city seriously considering alternate locations. If you believe the statue is good for business, why are the businesses in downtown more important than those near Francis Stevens Park, for example? Many states and cities are using ballot initiatives to advance progressive policies, but in Palm Springs, the City Council is using this initiative to give cover to themselves while they attempt to change rules they don't like. In the process, the city and PS Resorts disrespect all of the constituents who spent hours collaborating on the downtown plan, which this attempt to vacate Museum Way will essentially throw in the trash. CREMA will continue to use any legal avenue available, including CEQA, to compel the city to relocate the statue. Please save us all some time and money and just move it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next comments are on via Zoom. We have Steve Nash, followed by Courtney Newman. Steve Nash. IT, do we have Steve Nash? Do we have Courtney Newman? Courtney, go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Courtney? I know that there's some new people that walked in as well. Did anybody else in the audience have comments? No. Okay. Thank you. Just checking. Okay.
Hello?
Here he is.
Okay,
Go ahead, Courtney. You have 2 minutes.
thank you. My name is Courtney Newman. I'm the president of the Palm Springs Modern Committee, and I'm reading this statement on behalf of the Palm Springs Modern Committee. When the new downtown plan was approved by voters in 2016, a key goal was to create a new street, Museum Way, to improve the visibility of the Palm Springs Art Museum from Palm Canyon Drive because since the 1970s, it was blocked by the massive Desert Fashion Plaza. The Palm Springs Art Museum was designed in 1976 by one of Palm Springs' most important architects, E. Stewart Williams. Due to its architectural distinction and monumental presence as the city's premier cultural institution, it was officially designated a Palm Springs Class 1 historic site and also listed in the highly prestigious National Register of Historic Places. And then along came Maryland. Since her placement in the middle of Museum Way several years ago, it has become painfully evident that Maryland blocks the central view of the landmark museum building, becoming a major advocacy issue for Palm Springs Modern Committee. Founded in 1999, a key part of our mission is to enhance visibility and access to significant historic landmarks such as the Palm Springs Art Museum. That's why PS ModCom strongly objects to the legislative initiative appearing on the 2024 ballot that will make her current location permanent. We and many others believe the solution is to relocate Maryland to another site so that the view of the art museum is unobstructed. To be clear, we do not object to Maryland herself, a highly popular tourist attraction. What we want is for Maryland to be moved to another location, such as the northeast portion of the new downtown park or Francis Stevens Park. The Palm Springs Art Museum is too important historically, architecturally, and culturally to be concealed by an enormous statue. It's time to move Maryland to another site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir, sir? Oh. Oh, looks like we have Steve Nash back on the Zoom. Steve, you can go ahead and make your comment. Steve, are you there? City Clerk, did you also just receive another public comment? Let's go to that person.
Yes, Michael John Horn.
So wait a minute, Steve Nash here finally.
That's all right. Steve, go ahead, and then we'll move to the next person. Steve, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I lost you there for a while. And a lot of what I had to say has already been covered by our articulate other presenters. But I will say that I was director at the Art Museum when the specific city plan was developed. And we at the museum worked very hard to get that road in place. And I wanted to remind everyone about how important the creation of Museum Way was to the plan. Finally, as others have stressed, the Art Museum would no longer be cut off visually from the main part of downtown behind a Berlin Wall of vacated stores. But now it had a road approved that went straight to the front door and provided easy vehicle and pedestrian access. So what happened? Forever Maryland came along, and Palm Springs Resorts drastically wanted it back in town on a permanent basis, with city tax money covering all the $1 million plus and ongoing expenses. The location was designated in City Park close to, but not on Museum Way. But this location really apparently was not good enough for the City Council or Palm Springs Resorts. So the city pushed through a vote to close Museum Way while cutting off public input and ignoring proper legal procedures for closing a road. Fast forward to the present, and a court ruling that mandates the moving of the sculpture, a ruling that the city is attempting to evade with a ballot measure, which you must know cannot actually override a court decision. The whole point of Museum Way in the city plan was to create greater access to the museum. The statue blocks the view of the museum from Palm Canyon, blocks direct traffic access, ties the museum to a misogynist insult to Marilyn Monroe, and tarnishes the city's brand as a place for great art. By law.
Thank you. Next speaker, I'm sorry, I don't have your name. Thank you, Michael Horn.
Honorable Council members, my name is Michael John Horn. I'm here representing the South Palm Canyon and Sunny Dunes Business Association, which was created to promote and advocate for businesses in South Palm Springs.
Oh, Michael, I'm sorry, you're speaking at the wrong time.
Oh,
Yeah, the council meeting starts at 5:30, and the topic you're discussing is for that meeting
Oh,
at
I'm
5:30.
sorry.
Nope, it's okay.
apologize.
This is just for closed session. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Did you have? Not at this time. It's just, well, you can ask it via public comment, but we can't respond. So if you want to come to the mic and ask it via public comment, but we won't be able to respond. Okay. That's just procedure. All right, then at this time, we are going to adjourn to closed session, and we will be back in open session at 5:30 p.m. Thank you all.